what cultivating resilience is essentially saying your feelings make sense and you're capable of holding them. I believe in your ability to meet this feeling and hold it and acknowledge it. And I'm not leaving you. You're just not giving them what they think they need, which is for you to abandon yourself so that they don't feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to abandon myself to alleviate your discomfort. I'm going to choose me while still loving you.
I'm Tiffany Souter, entrepreneur, wife, mom to 4 girls, and a woman figuring it out just like you. If you're tired of living a life of have to and finally ready to build a life of want to, then you're in the right place. Come on, let's go build your life of and. Welcome back to another episode of Life of And. I'm your host, Tiffany Souter. And before we get into this conversation, because I do a little bit of a preamble, I just want to do a quick bio on my guest because she's just like wickedly impressive. And I want you to understand just her credibility and background before we double click into this conversation. So my conversation is with Danielle Ireland. She is a licensed therapist and mental health advocate based here in Indianapolis in my backyard. She's so warm. Her insightfulness and her authenticity shine through in absolutely everything she does. She's got a background, which you'll hear us talk about, in the performing arts as a ballroom dancer, instructor, and an actress for like 10 years. So wild. And now she does clinical mental health. Went back to school like as a grown up and got her master's and did all the things. So Danielle, she just brings this really rare blend of empathy, creativity, and professionalism to her work that I'm really excited for you to hear about. So she describes herself as a recovering perfectionist, which is a bit wild as you start to hear the free-spirited version of her evolved adult self. And she now channels this journey into fostering others and finding self-compassion and growth so that we can better understand ourselves. So she's also the heart behind Don't Cut Your Own Bangs, best podcast title name ever. And she guides guests through the messy, beautiful middle of life. So whether you're crafting your own self-care journey, self-discovery, like so many of us are on, or seeking laughter and healing, Danielle is going to be your guide. So listen to my conversation with Danielle. We cover a lot of ground, but really she makes me think deeply about where I'm going and why I want to get there. Listen in. You guys, I'm really excited for today's conversation. This interview came together very naturally, which I think are the best ones when you're not scouring the internet, seeing who can I interview and add value to myself and to my listeners. But Danielle and I were in a shared group together. She's also a podcaster here in Indianapolis and just a very generous spirit. And so I asked her and some other women to lunch and just said like, this kind of like world of scripting, of producing yourself and being on the microphone and trying to put something that you really are proud of out into the world can be very lonely. And so I was looking for just some people to kind of share that with, share that burden with a little bit and sort of feel like I wasn't doing it wrong. And in that, I asked her to reach into my life of and world. And I shared with her some of the like tools I teach that I know have a bit of a therapy underpinning to them, but I'm not trained in that way. And so I asked Danielle if she would come and sort of share some insights with me off the mic. And so it came together so naturally. I'm like, we have to get on the microphone and do this. So Danielle, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Tiffany, for having me. This is a pleasure. And first, I want to say that you have such a mind for community and you have a macro process mind. Mm-hmm. Like you can see how threads and dots connect in such a zoomed out way that I admire because that's not how my mind works. Like I kind of get locked in to in a more singular way, mm-hmm. which lends to the work that I do. Yeah. But I really admire the zone of genius that you have in your life of and I will say the reason why it feels like it connects with therapy is because therapy is just a way that we have created to process emotion, and everything you're tapping into with life mm-hmm. with and has an emotional root. Mm-hmm. So even though you may not have the therapeutic training, your life experience as a human and then the emotions you have absolutely lend itself to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's so true. And I think because I do see the macro, it is hard for me sometimes to like pinpoint, like, why does this work? And I really think that is going to be the root of our conversation is like, why are the things the way they are? Because when we understand that, I feel like also therapy is about taking agency over what is. Yes, some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's hard, some of it's gross, some of it's embarrassing. All those things are just true. And so I think that's also like in the spirit of the work you do, in the spirit of the work I do, it's like, we just have to see what's true.
And yes, and I think seeing what's true and really see it. I think we overestimate as individuals how unique our experiences are. I think we really over-index, like, and which can turn into pathologizing and shame and really heavy self-critical talk. Like, I somehow am a failing at this. I somehow am not able to connect the dots. It's my inability to execute X, Y, and Z, or why am I feeling so overwhelmed and confused? And the benefit I have and the training I have and then the work that I do as a therapist is that I get to hear hundreds, and I think at this point, it would be fair to say thousands and thousands of expressions of those same types of fears and thoughts. And so the pain and the emotions are not special or unique, which is why I think what you tapped into with Life Event is so powerful. You tapped into your experience, and through the process of sharing it, it has become bigger than you, which is always what happens. It's just, that is the trap, the elusive trap of shame. And I'm calling it shame, but we call it fear or anxiety. We can call it scarcity, anything based, an emotion that makes you feel uncomfortable. But when you acknowledge it and then find a safe place to put it, whether that's a journal, a person, a community, a workshop, a coach, it doesn't have to be therapy. But when you find a place where you can reveal that part of yourself that you otherwise thought you could never share, there is instant relief. And then if it's met with kindness or curiosity or, yeah, I get it, me too, oh my gosh, then transformation happens. But it first has to start with really letting yourself see it.
Totally. And that's actually so interesting. The way this whole journey, my podcast used to be called Scared Confident. I started out with like, I'm just tired of operating, kind of just wrestling with fear. People would have observed me as being brave and courageous and entrepreneurial and stepping into all this risk. But I felt like I was just like wrestling a bear. I'm like, I'm just kind of done with that. So I went on, so that kind of started me just exposing it on the microphone. But even the way I talked about the beginning of our relationship came from exactly what you're saying, is confronting my fear, and the speed at which I'm willing to do that in my life, of saying like, I'm feeling lonely. I'm so tribal as a human. I used to run a big company. I felt a lot of purpose in that. My calendar pulled me through my day. My people sort of told me what to put my time to. You know what I mean? And now I'm like, it's like somehow very noisy and very quiet at the exact same time as I'm out on my own. And so I was like, I have to imagine others are feeling the same way. And maybe we have lunch and that's all it becomes. But maybe we meet quarterly. Maybe we support each other. Maybe we solve faster moving together. And I think that's a way that I've learned to have more courage and not being embarrassed that I feel that way, being able to put vocabulary to it faster.
Well, the way you're able to identify, oh, I'm feeling this and I can see that. And then, do you all want to talk about it? And I value that so much, and I admire that so much, because my work as a therapist, I work with clients virtually. I work from home. This is the fanciest I've been in a minute, on a Tuesday afternoon.
So usually spiritual gangsters.
It's typically athleisure, and athleisure is even generous, because that's like a whole market now. It's probably like, honestly, the fashion police, like it's yoga pants. But because the work I do is largely has been working with individuals and talking to them about their individual life and devoting an hour at a time for each person. It almost feels like a Tetris board of you get an hour, you get an hour, you get an hour, you get an hour. And when I really committed to creating something, my podcast is called Don't Cut Your Own Bangs, the remedy to comparison and feeling like everyone has life figured out but you. And I started that originally when I began my therapy practice because I wanted to still access something creative, but I didn't have a goal attached to it. It was just, I have a creative outlet, yay, now I'll go back to therapy. And over the course of making it, little by little by little, I'm such a feelings first person, it started to feel like it could be more. And I started to see the impact of what it could be. And then I started meeting people like you, meeting people like Ashley Flowers, who, created Crying Junkie and Audio Chuck. I started to see in my life, right in front of my eyes, oh, there is something so much more that this could be. And it wasn't that I wanted to do or be you or what anyone else was, but it was like I saw that there was all this real estate in front of me. And I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely not at the very beginning, but I'm probably not where I could be. And where could I land? Where is my life at and moment in that? But I kept all of that so insular and inside. And so you inviting and seeing that in others has been such a gift. And it's a gift that you're still offering here on your podcast.
So I'm curious for you being, I experienced you like wildly intuitive, super emotions first in the way that you experience the world. So I, on the other hand, have to work really hard to tap it. Like I can become a machine. Feel no pain. I feel no earth. I feel no air. I just like do the things. So what does achievement, motivation, goal setting, like what does that look like and feel like in your body versus like for me? Cause I'm like, this would be the goal. It would be explicit. It would be defined. I would have a plan. And I'm like, I think you would melt.
Yeah.
That's what
I
life
would
felt
be
like.
Olaf from Frozen, and I would just melt into a bottle.
So what does that like feel like and look like for you?
I've really wrestled with, and I say wrestling, you mentioned wrestling a bear. I've actually written a children's book called Wrestling a Walrus for little people with big feelings. There is something about the language of wrestling that I really think is appropriate for this. And we'll talk about that more. But my journey over the last 10 years has been really finding integrity and embracing what's true about me. And I would say that the feeler, intuitive, perceiver part was something I rejected for a long time. And what that resulted in was trying on different identities, like an outfit that fit poorly, but I could get by in. So I worked as a ballroom dance instructor for 7 years. I knew what my goals were. I knew what my schedule was. I knew what my training schedule was to improve my own dancing. And before that, I worked as a commercial actor. So I was working at 13 on commercial sets until I was 24. And so like I did a spot for The Walking Dead, which was the highlight of my career. Yeah. And these different seasons and chapters, what I found was, oh, this is something that I like and something I can do. And so let me just see how far I can take that. And so I would create goals and I would build relationships. And then I would get to this point that I could only describe as like buzzy, where I would see, oh, if I really want to build a life with this path that I've chosen, the things that I would have to do, I realized I didn't care about it enough to really sacrifice for it. And it wasn't until I met my now husband when I was teaching dance that the process of meeting him and loving him, it was, I recognized, oh, if I go down this path of kind of skipping and not really examining what matters to me, and I make a life with this person, I will lose myself in this person. And so I would make my life about them. And I was terrified. It was like equal points, which usually happens in like a therapeutic breakthrough. Usually ahas also lend to, oh, fuck. Because you're like, aha, I've got it. Oh no, now I have to do something. And so meeting him was in many different versions, both of those things toggling back and forth. And I recognized that to build a life with the person I want to build it with, I need to build a life. And I hadn't really done the internal examination or investigating of what mattered to me and how to make that a priority. I just sort of followed, someone told me I was good at something. And I think my desire to please and my desire to be good, I wanted to be seen as like shiny and special. And so, oh, I can adopt this identity and really execute. I'll be really good at this.
Yeah.
But being a people pleaser only can take you so far before it leads to burnout or it leads to overwhelm or anxiety. Because again, it's just not, it's like not my skin suit. And so over the course of, once I made that realization, it was about a 3-year process of trying and failing. And I like to think failing forward, but I tried different jobs. And finally, it led me to the place where I realized I need to go back to school. I want to be a therapist. And then that recognition and my biological clock and my desire to start a family started to inch together around the same time. And so I would say for the first time in my life, I started to experience more intense emotional responses. Like I think I was in true anxiety and I had true bouts of depression, but I was incredibly burnt out. And I was just fueled by succeeding, not failing. And so to bring that back to your question of what is it like to set goals and how do I hold space for that now? I'm going to say I'm still learning it because I recognize that not having a plan means you don't get anywhere.
Right.
It's like if I want to get to California, I'm probably going to need, and I'm going to use a car. There's actual logistical things and that I have to figure out. But what I'm embracing now in this stage of life is really getting clear on my why first and really paying attention to how I feel first before I say yes, before I say no, and before I try to execute a plan. Because most of my life, all of my teens and 20s, was adopting somebody else's plan for me first. And I didn't know until I was already like at the destination that I realized, oh, this was never my plan. And then I would feel the consequences of that. And so I'm learning that in real time.
Yeah. So I actually want to tie this back to when you and I first started talking about Life of And I shared with you, here's kind of my personas. I have like the young mom who's 27, that has said, hey, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be get in a leadership role, a job I loved, marry somebody that I was crazy about, start a family, buy a house. It's like, I did all these things. And then I have my other persona who's more like my life stage where it's like, okay, my kids are, I know the plan is set. We know how many kids we're going to have. I don't know what jobs we're going to have, but life is moving really fast because we've said yes to so many things. And I said, I got to a place in my life where I had done all the things I set out to do and my life felt like a prison, just kind of what you're saying too. It's like, let's talk a little bit about that. It's like, how could I have created a trap for myself? These are all the things I wanted and worked for and prayed for and thought that I was going to love. And now I don't. Why doesn't it feel so great? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I have to believe that moment you and I both found. I also think it's so interesting that you were able to discern in your journey of it wasn't that David was trying to force his life onto you. It was the fact that it was a vortex for you that his strength would fill if you weren't clear on that. That's a very nuanced point of discernment at a very vulnerable place in life.
Well, and I'll take the honesty a step further. We were together and then he broke up with me and we were apart for a period of time. And it was in his absence. I felt the void. I realized, he was just emotionally filling all the gaps that I haven't looked at. And it was hard at the time, but I am now, for both of us in many ways, so grateful. Because had that not happened, I don't think I would have really reconciled with what I had yet to do for myself. And so I appreciate you acknowledging that. Can you go back to your
question? So my question was this idea of we've done everything right. We've done all the stuff. Why don't we feel good? Why doesn't it feel good? We create these prisons, these cages for ourselves.
I think it's most often I see it as one of two things. The second is, I think, just true of evolving and growing, is that it is natural. I think so many times I see women in particular shut themselves down for wanting more. I have so much. Why should I possibly want more? Why would I ask for more? I have enough. I have more than I need. I have more than so many. And this sense of sort of measuring against in a state of lack. I think growth and evolution and change are inevitable and they're natural. And we judge ourselves for wanting more, asking for more. And I think that is part of it, or it's often one of the two elements, which is life has introduced more life. And as I see what is now available to me, I'm introduced to new flavors, new spices. My tastes are changing. And what is the relationship with allowing that evolution to happen? Is it okay for me to want something different now than I wanted 10 years ago? Is it okay for me to change my mind? And then the other
Can we stick there for a second? We remember the other one. I think in that scenario, I think it is exactly right. Women have a hard time, but I think we have a hard time leaving behind some of what's required for us to move forward. Do you know what I mean? Because so it becomes this additive journey of every person, every place, every tribe, every yes moves forward with us instead of us having the courage to edit some things out to make room for the new. And then I think we get scared of the new because it just feels like more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the fear of either if I admit to this change, and I embrace this change, there will be something I lose. I think that sometimes thinking of like metaphorically, like moving into a new home, maybe you move into a new home and there's a lot of editing that has to happen just to make the packing more manageable. And then you get into the new space and you realize, oh, this furniture doesn't quite work in this room the way that I thought. There is some discomfort in change, but I think acknowledging it as a part of change, not a character flaw, is really, really helpful to right size the emotional confusion, because otherwise what we can look at is I'm abandoning someone. I'm quitting a job. I'm abandoning the team. I'm leaving a marriage. I'm destroying my family. I think if you can hold space for what is true and what is also kind to you, because in my experience, like I don't work with narcissists, mostly because narcissists don't actually come to therapy. Who I work with are people who deeply care about their life. They deeply care about the people in their life, and they're trying to figure out, how can I fit in that too? How can I make myself matter as much as the other things that I love? And so when you can acknowledge, if I am in my integrity and I know that this choice is right for me, and I know that it will have an impact on people, am I destroying something? Am I abandoning something? Or am I in the confusing, challenging state of change? And it's kind of like we can see and look back, you know, at our, you know, preteens and our adolescents. God, puberty is hard. Puberty is so hard. But we can see that from where we sit now, and we can recognize that as temporary and a really hard growth edge. But we don't know that when we're in it. And so sometimes when we're in it, it may be helpful to gain a perspective outside of ourselves, which I have found in my own meditative and journaling practice. I have found in community, and I've also found in friends or coaching. So sometimes I think when you're in those like dark night of the soul moments, when you're trying to face a hard choice, finding good counsel and a safe space to let everything be true can be really helpful.
Yeah. So you were saying, don't let the discomfort be a character flaw. Understand it is a condition of change.
It is absolutely a component of.
And I think other people's change. There have been times when other people's lives have been asked to move in different places. I mean, even my sister, their family was here for a few years and then were called back over to Arizona. And for a while, I processed that very personally. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think sometimes our own reactions to people's growth and change can hold them back unknowingly. I'm sure when you left the ballroom community, that is I don't know it, but I watch it on TV sometimes. That is a tribal thing.
And it's your whole life.
Yes.
It's your whole, I mean,
It had to be a huge deal.
I'd say 90% of my social grew. But I think that your discomfort will not let you forget it. So, you know, I had maybe the knowing long before I was ready to act on it. I would have that feeling, and I would swallow that discomfort. It's like the pill, like those rough, big pills that kind of
like literally, I could feel it. So come on. Yes.
We can swallow our own discomfort for a long time. And particularly if we're high achieving, people pleasing, codependent recovering, you know, eldest child, like whatever kitschy zeitgeist mental health term that's on TikTok right now. All of those things are true, by the way. I'm not poo-pooing that.
I know I've pretty much just got the trifecta up in the same.
Yes. Like our tolerance and our resilience to handle our own discomfort, especially if we're, you know, athletes, or all of the grit, you know, in the culture, speaks to, well, this is hard and this feels hard, and hard means I must be doing something right. So I'll just keep going. And I think that's oftentimes why we have breakdowns before we have breakthroughs. And my hope, my sincere hope, is that I can help make that process a little less intense, maybe a little gentler, maybe have a softer landing. It doesn't mean there isn't effort involved or that it isn't hard. But if you can tolerate discomfort for a while, you may have a recognition 3 years before you're ready to act on it. And this is, I think, more through a therapeutic lens and through a family systems lens or an internal family systems lens, that we come into the world solely focused on our own comfort. So babies, their first impulse is comfort, discomfort. They recognize I'm hungry, I'm full, I'm hot, or I'm cold, and now my temperature is regulated. I'm uncomfortable, and now I'm feeling touched, and I'm feeling held, and I'm feeling soothed, and I'm good. That's how we all come into the world. It's always the same. Comfort, discomfort, pain, the absence of pain. And from that lens, children become, as they just continue to mature and grow, they're highly focused on themselves, what they want, what they like, what they don't like, what they want to identify things in the world. And it's somewhere for most of us, it is somewhere in like early adolescence, we start to, and probably even sooner, but we start to go from looking in to decide, I feel hungry, I'll ask for what I want, or I feel lonely, I'll declare that aloud, to adopting the rules of culture. So it could be a family culture, it could be a school culture, it could be an athletic culture, but there are rules of the culture, and culture exists by conformity to the rules. And essentially, so like rules about money, rules about your body, what's okay to talk about, what's not okay to talk about, what's okay to wear, what's not okay to wear. That also is how we learn good skills too. This is the process is not a judgment of the process, but acknowledging that it exists is helpful. Because what happens is as we're moving through the world and we're having our internal experience, we're gauging how okay that experience is based on how the world responds to us. So what you get rewarded for at home, what you get punished for at home, what you get rewarded for at school, what you get punished for at school. And so a lot of high achievers, they get their dopamine hit, their serotonin, their oxytocin, all of the lovely, delicious things that flood our brain and body that tell us we're safe and we're lovable and worthy are rewards from effort. That's a gross oversimplification, but I think it highlights the point that our barometer for how good we are, how okay we are, and what we should do becomes externalized. And so that model works to a point until it doesn't. And I think that it's okay whenever we kind of get hit with the knowledge of, oh, the way I've been operating just isn't working for me anymore. And of course, this is easier for me to say because I've done it. I've done it not the way that I'm describing it, only about 100 million times. But if you could identify, oh, this is a way that I've been operating in the world, it's no longer serving me. I wonder if I could reflect on that. If only it were that easy.
Yeah,
but
right.
that it is that simple. It's just that easy.
Well, you use the vocabulary of egos driven decision making versus values driven decision making when we talked last time. And even in your own story, as you were talking about chasing the achieving and then realizing I'm not willing to make some of these compromises that the next step is going to require. And I think that parallels to what you were just talking about there too, which is like when we get to a place where we're so driven by the external that we lose sight of the internal. And I think these pauses of confusion, pauses of I don't know what I want to do next are so uncomfortable as an adult because they could be 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. Like we don't know. And so we're sitting in this place where we need to earn money. We need to feel confident in our answers and saying, I'm unclear. I'm not sure. I'm trying to understand that is like kind of, it's awkward. And so we look for, like what you're saying, feedback from the outside world of like, well, what am I good at? Because that is maybe going to answer that question. And then I think we can get to this place where, yeah, our egos are what, and I got to that same place in my life where it was like what the agency was going to require of me for us to grow it to the next level. I think I could have done it, but I, in my heart of hearts, know the leader in place now is better for this stretch of growth. I'm so good at the beginning. My family was getting to the place where I wanted to be available for them differently than what being in a service business was going to allow me to do. And I felt like a quitter in saying that. Like I've been known for being tough and kind of a warrior and like like doing the things. And I'm like, I don't want to quit on everybody. I don't want, but that was my own narrative. It's like growing out of the way. It's kind of how I explain it to myself. I needed to grow out of the way.
Well, and I think like a question that I would introduce to that story is, what were you quitting? Because I think that I say failing forward, but there's probably a better and kinder way to acknowledge that. I don't look at though it makes, it can certainly sound like these stark jumps of I did this and then I did this and now I do this and now I do this. But the common denominator with all of those things is me. And it's the same with relationships, dating history, friendships. I'm the common thread to all of those things. So letting the outside world inform, I think, is also a part of it. It's an interdependent, co-created thing. Like particularly when we're talking about relationships that really matter to you. And so it's like, it's all filtering back information. It's all filtering back information. And it's just informing the next best step for you. And I think that if commitment and follow through meant staying the same, then maybe in that regard, you did, if I could be so bold as to say, you did quit or you did fail. But I think what I hear you say is not that. It's, I got more clear on what my priorities were. I got more clear on what mattered. I got more clear on how I wanted to show up and how I could best serve. And that's what I'm moving into. And in order to do that, there's something I have to say goodbye to. The truth, I believe the truth in its highest expression is always kind. And when the truth is delivered with a critical lens or a judgmental lens, it's something other than truth. It's self-judgment, it's shame. And there's always something rooted beneath that, always.
I think for me, it was at times hard to discern. Loyalty is a big part of my personality and a big thing that I value in others. And I think discerning the loyalty aspect of my personality. And I think the other part of it is when you do something for a long time, you have to show up on days you don't want to. And discerning what was like my spirit is uncomfortable versus I'm just tired and it's been a long week. You know what I mean? Like discerning that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Such a great point. Because like, yeah, what is the discomfort of a Wednesday and not getting as much sleep as I wanted and just like not feeling my best and my inner knowing guiding me down.
Yeah. It's like they're sometimes feel a lot like the same way.
And sometimes it's a matter of, okay, I'm feeling this feeling. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to move into my day. I like to advise people to take stock of what happens before, during, and after. So allow all of those things to be true. So I'm using the gym is an overused metaphor probably, but it makes sense. Like sometimes I don't always want to go, but then I get there and I start moving and I'm like, oh, okay, this feels good. I like the way my body's feeling when I do this and I feel amazing after. I'm going to take all that information into consideration. Oh, I was probably just tired. Or maybe I wasn't really feeling it, but I'm so glad I did it. The difference with that like soul sucking need to do some reevaluating life of anding. I am dreading it ahead. I feel miserable while I'm doing it. I feel so drained. I need a whole day to recover, but I probably don't give myself that day to recover. And so what I do is I grab an extra glass of wine and a bag of chocolate. I stop at Trader Joe's. I grab snacks I don't need. And then I over caffeinate the next day because I feel so guilty about what I did. Like there are choices and consequences and feelings that won't leave you alone when it's the other thing. Because I think emotions are temporary.
Yep.
Emotions are temporary and they come and go. When they persist, that is really something to pay attention to. And so to your point, if one bad day is one bad day, it's one bad day.
Yep.
But if one bad day is a bad year, if it's leading to other, and a lot of times people don't recognize what's really going on until they have physical health complications. Like you never know what's going to bring you to your knees sometimes.
Yeah. Mine was not as like visceral as it relates to my physical response to it. But I think where it showed up for me was I started to find when I was like, okay, these are the biggest issues I need to solve in the business. I would start dreaming of other things. It's like I couldn't get my brain to do it.
Yeah.
And then I was losing my confidence. I was like, maybe I'm not the right person, and which is okay. And then I started to say, maybe that's just true. Maybe I can get there. I'm good at bringing other people in and all the things that need to happen. But that was my biggest thing. I was like, I found I wasn't able to get my brain to sit on the biggest problems I needed to solve. And that was kind of a clue to me because I had solved a lot of really hard problems. I led the business through some really hard times. And so it wasn't that I was afraid of the war. I was like, I think that maybe I'm not the right general for this. And that was uncomfortable at the beginning because it's like, well, my job is to kind of know. And I was like, well, I think my job is just to solve it. That doesn't need to be with me.
You know, something just occurred to me as you were talking about that I think there's the internal process and then the external thing that we see. It's like the difference between reading a novel and watching a movie. So the behavior on the outside is you step away from a job. If my internal compass says loyalty is everything and follow through is paramount and you must follow through on your commitments and do what you said you're going to do, but I'm going to look at your behavior. I'm going to say, ooh, quit. You should quit. But if I'm in the novel of your life, which only can be known by you because you're the only thinker in your mind. No one else can get in there. You are knowing what you're feeling, what you're perceiving, how you're relating to people, how it's affecting the choices you're making, how it's affecting your energy. Like that is an internal knowing that is in your integrity. It's in line with your values. It's moving you in a direction that makes you feel more alive and less dead inside. That is not quitting. But I think that that is oftentimes where there's confusion of either perception or what we see modeled in somebody else. We have no idea. We have no idea. I often say, because my life felt like kind of hopping from lily pad to lily pad so many times, that I envied people who sort of went to school, knew they wanted to be a doctor, went to medical school, got a medical degree, and other doctors. Like, I'm saying that like it's so easy.
Yeah, right.
I see your friends who are doctors, they'd be like, Danielle.
Totally. And then you get closer and their novel sounds much different. Yeah. Yeah.
Elizabeth Gilbert has this great metaphor that there are many people who are pollinators, and I think she calls them like jackhammers. And so pollinators, they hop from flower to flower, and they just help propagate, all of these beautiful plants, and it's so important for nature. And then there's some people that just drill down and just continue to chip away at that thing that they do so well. And I think that part of something that is true of me that I'm learning to embrace is that I think our culture rewards the people who really drill down, and I am more of a pollinator. And also, I think through the process of letting myself sample and try, I'm finding the things that I'm willing, like the efforting in the service of therapeutic work, efforting in the service of making creative projects that I believe in, efforting in the service of my podcast. That is an effort that I feel like when I'm tired and don't have the energy, there's a little extra fuel in the tank that I'm ready to give to that. And so I think going back to this idea of so much of what we're talking about is really about saying goodbye to something or recognizing what's not working. But the more attuned you get to this emotional body, you can also feel when you become more alive, when something is working and cylinders are firing. And it often feels like, I don't know what this is, but I want this. It's like you kind of are taking a detour. You don't know if it's a scenic route or a dead end, but you're like, God, I feel so good. And it leads you somewhere better ultimately.
Totally.
Yeah.
Can we take a detour about something we talked about last time that has been something I've repeated this a dozen times to someone else, being like, do you know what I just learned? We have to be willing to allow our kids to cross over the threshold of discomfort. Do you remember talking about this?
It sounds like you.
She's looking at me like it's the first time she's ever heard it. I've literally said it so many times. Okay, this is what I want you to explain it. I'll tell you how I remember it. And then maybe you'll be like, I don't know, maybe.
I'm sure.
So I was talking about how oftentimes our kids' reactions can be the things that determine our choices as a parent. So I was saying, when I would leave to go overnight, my kids would be like, well, we don't want you to go. We don't want you to go. We don't want you to go. It's like, so a life of or for me is like, okay, traveling's too hard. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to travel 0 nights a year. Well, that doesn't totally work for the speed of what I would like to take in my own life and like goals I want to like achieve. But also I know going and writing a book and like doing a book tour where I'm on the road 60 nights a year is probably not the time to do that. So between 0 and writing a book, how can I make an explicit agreement with my family? And mine is like 12 nights a year. I don't count when JR and I go away because I think that's like in service to them. Sorry for your luck. You'll understand later.
That's not in service of you.
Totally. It's in service to us for sure. But traveling for work, I try to keep that to I kind of like on the whole, 1 night a month. It doesn't fall that way, but it's sort of like, look, there's going to be times when I'm not gone all month long.
Yeah.
So I've created that agreement with my kids. And you said as parents, we have to allow our kids to cross this threshold of discomfort because otherwise they never understand, my paraphrase, that there's not a monster on the other side. That actually amazing things can happen. You can have a great time with the world's best sitter. You guys can go have ice cream at 10 p.m. You can take a golf cart ride under the stars. I don't know, all kinds of things that can happen when mom's not home.
Yeah.
So you explain a little bit, but this idea of a threshold of discomfort, I'll tell one more story and then I'll actually let you talk. I was getting ready to leave and she was laying in bed. It's at night. Everybody feels vulnerable when they're being put to bed, and there's nothing more precious than sitting with your kid and them, seeing you as like the most important thing. And she's like, do you really have to go tomorrow, Mom? And I said, what do you think could happen while I'm away? You told me to do this.
Okay, I just said, okay.
And I said, what do you think could happen? And she paused and had like one bad thing and then like 8 good things. I was like, so what do you think is going to happen while Mom is away? Like, do you think it could actually be super fun? Do you think it could actually? And she's like, I guess it could be. So I said, well, I'm going to leave tomorrow morning and then I'm going to come back and then we're going to talk about what happened. And I got back. I was like, it was so amazing. She never texted me a single time. I was gone for 72 hours. It was like literally time went so fast. She's like, we had so much fun. It didn't even seem like you were gone. Like it was great, all the things. But again, what you taught me was you have to let them cross into that threshold of discomfort, because otherwise we train them as teenagers to not step into it. We train them as young adults to not step into it, and becomes this abyss. So
Yes, no,
that's teaching your lesson, but what is the thing?
No, what I'm hearing back, actually, I'm not so much hearing my words, but I'm hearing your interpretation of whatever I said. And I love what you're saying because it's so good. It's so great. Like, however it
came out,
however it was embodied by you, like, that's gorgeous.
Is this the right thing to do from a clinical perspective?
Am I doing it right?
Am I doing it right?
You got the gold star.
That's right. Can you please feed my ego?
Yes. Oh, well, no, I'm validating you. Yes. Yeah. That's okay. And also, like, the ego gets a bad rap. There's also, it exists. So we got to just embrace it. But so what I have found is that I can't give my kids what I don't have. And a big part of I'll just use my creative journey. Every time I approach new technology, I get something I jokingly, lovingly call tech sweat, because what I'm confronting every time is my internalized belief that I'm not good at it. That's going to take me too long, that I'm going to waste too much time, and I might as well just stop. And like you said, you mentioned in a story before, like, I'm just going to distract myself rather than do the thing I need to do.
Amen.
And so over the course of, and whether it was performing or dancing or applying to grad school, like, side note, I didn't have all the credits I needed to even qualify to apply. So I had to do a whole semester of school to get the science credits I needed to even qualify for the application. So I was confronting so much lack and scarcity and worthiness, and am I doing this too late? But every time, what I learned is that confidence is always in hindsight. It's earned through facing discomfort and being able to say, I did it. And so what I want is to give that in whatever way that I can without making it about me, but I want to give that to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so cultivating resilience is essentially saying your feelings make sense and you're capable of holding them. I believe in your ability to meet this feeling and hold it and acknowledge it. And I'm not leaving you. I think sometimes that like, especially if you have an anxiously attached child, or if you have an anxious attachment style, what can be really helpful is saying, this is when I'm going to be gone and this is when I'm going to be back. This is how you can reach me. So you're not abandoning them.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not giving them what they think they need, which is for you to abandon yourself so that they don't feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to abandon myself to alleviate your discomfort. I'm going to choose me while still loving you.
I mean, we need to say it again for the people in the back, because that is so hard. I am not going to abandon my own needs to be able to serve and be here for you. That is so countercultural. I have seen it play out so productively in my life that I feel like I get there faster now than I did 10 years ago. And I think when you talk about it and being in service to cultivating confidence in your kids, it gives it sense. You know what I mean? Versus selfishness.
Right. Yeah. And
it can be interpreted that way.
And it's certainly never intended to be flippant or like, listen, I need to do, it's not meant to be snappy or snarky or like all the language that is really used, I think, to weaponize against women advocating, but it's never intended that way. I always go back to the language I repeat in my mind. I don't know how many times a day, probably too many, is where is the truth and the most kind, like, where is that Venn diagram of truth and kindness?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm only able to really know when I'm moving in service in the way that we're talking. Because there'll be times where I'm not really sure what the answer is, and maybe I'll say the yes that maybe should have been a no. And almost as soon as I'm in that moment, I'll feel that recognition of, oh, dang it. I did the thing. I said yes to a commitment I really shouldn't have said yes to, or I, gave in for the extra 15 minutes. I gave into an extra Bluey episode knowing that she's going to be more tired afterwards, and I'm going to pay the consequence of that. Like, it's not about getting it right every time, but if you can identify through your experience of this is the right kind of hard, this is the kind of discomfort that I feel, doing a good rep and a hard workout that's going to really benefit me. But it's such an internal, like, that's the novel, not the movie. I can't montage my way through the discomfort. Only I know, did I just pull a muscle or am I building muscle? And so I think that's just through, to be perfectly honest, trial and error, letting yourself get it wrong, but then just take stock. How did it feel? It felt hard to have that conversation with my daughter. It felt hard to see her in pain. I don't like seeing her in pain. And I really feel like doing this thing anyway is still in service of me. And then on the other side of that, oh, I feel really good about going. She felt really good about me going. That's all information. Versus, sometimes honoring yourself may be saying no to the commitment and saying yes to the family, but only you know. It's just, yeah.
I had that situation this week where when I scheduled a yes on my calendar, I didn't have the full context of some other things that were going to be added. And so on Sunday night, when I was doing my planning meeting, I was like, I can see where the train wreck is going to happen in our week. We are going to be relationally unstable by Thursday. Mom's going to need to be home for a few hours to touch down just because we've got late night. I just know how the week's going to go. And so I respectfully just pulled myself out of something and said, I just can't with some other things. And so that was a place where I'm sort of saying no in my own space because I know what the kids are going to need from me. And exactly what you're saying. Sometimes you place a yes in an an ill-advised way, let's call it.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Or I love that. I mean, you didn't have all the information.
Yes.
I mean, that is, oh gosh, that's probably something that gets me tripped up more often than not. I'm not a fine print reader. Just a little side note that speaks to that. So my daughter is really afraid of bugs, or was really afraid of bugs. So I thought, I'm going to help her, just embrace this fear. I'm going to buy some caterpillars so that she can really see the whole magical process. And flash forward, I ordered 30 caterpillars. I don't, and just because I didn't read.
Seemed like a reasonable number.
I ordered, there were way too many caterpillars. Some, found a home under a tree, and some stayed in our house all the way to the point where she was able to release them and not crush them in her hand. So we got there, but sometimes leaping before you really look, it happens.
Yeah,
and
totally.
you
have to negotiate it.
Yeah. My therapist has a quote that I can share, is that like, sometimes it's like walking the cat back, where you kind of got into the weeds. You're like, I just need to figure out how to get out of this and then just own it. Yeah.
Totally. Okay. So can you share with my listeners, what you brought me some lovely gifts. So walk us through these, and then let us know where they can find your pod and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, so, DanielleIreland.com. If there's anything that all of this is linked there. So my podcast, my resources, it's all linked there. But this is a journal. It's called Treasured, a journal for unearthing you. And it's broken down into 7 key areas of your life. I made this originally because I recommended therapy to every client long before I had a resource. And they would bring a blank journal in, essentially, back when I was seeing people in person. And they was like, okay, I have it. What do I do with it? And so we would create prompts or sentence stems, quotes. We would create exercises for them to guide and direct their thoughts. Because I think a lot of people that don't journal maybe think of journaling as like, dear diary.
Totally.
And it can feel, if it feels like a waste of time, it's not something you're going to do. But what I have found is the primary relationship in your life, the one you came in with and the one you're going to exit with, is the one you have with yourself. And so devoting some time to that internal dialogue, because we're having thoughts running through our head all the time. And journaling just gives you an opportunity to direct that chatter in a way that works for you. So this is broken down into 7 key areas of your life: money, career, purpose, love, relationships, family. But also, it doesn't have to be this. But I think for anyone who's ever heard about journaling and thought, maybe I want to try it, but I don't know what to do, this is really who it's for. Or someone who abandoned a journaling practice and know how to pick it up or would like to pick it up in a different way.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm so excited about it. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
And then your children's book. Let's talk about this
Yes.
too.
So I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, or almost 2-year-old. He'll be 2 in about a week. But this is for wrestling a walrus. It's wrestling a walrus for little people with big feelings. And I made this, essentially it is the shortened, abridged, slightly more poetic version of what we talked about, which is I believe in your ability to handle and hold discomfort. And what does the process look like when you meet a seemingly impassable, unmovable obstacle? So the walrus is a metaphor for emotions. So I'm feeling a really uncomfortable emotion and I don't want to hold it and I want the emotion to go away. I want you to change so I don't have to feel the way I'm feeling. So this little penguin wants the walrus to be different so it doesn't have to feel discomfort.
I want you to change so I don't have to feel what I'm feeling.
You need to make me feel better.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. And so, but that's not
No,
that's,
I know.
That's not how people are.
But that's what we
Yeah.
encourage.
It is. It
It's
is.
what we encourage.
I mean, we do that with our partners. Like, I want you to do this so that I don't have to feel resentment, fear, anger, blah, blah, blah. And so this offers a process that you can actually walk through with your littles. And the process of making it was also really beautiful for me too. I have adults who are ready who tell me that they actually really
Yeah,
want
I'm
to.
excited about it. Thank you so much. So thoughtful. You guys, I love also that she's learned about herself. Like preparing does not make you better. You're like, I'm intuitive. I just want to sit in it together. And it frees me to want to master myself watching you just be like, this is how I work best. And I need to operate in that to get the best out of me. And so anyway, that's inspiring to me. I feel like rubbing against that makes me want to be more curious about myself.
And likewise, seeing the choices you've made and what you've built based on those choices and like what you've been able to create, that's inspiring to me. So I need a little taste of that too. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to be the yin to your yang.
I know it's very fun. I'm really excited. I feel like we're at the beginning of some really cool things here. So Danielle, thank you for sharing your insights with us. Thank you for encouraging us to stand in what we need from our lives because everybody wins when we do that.
100%. And if anyone wants to hear conversations like this, I do have a podcast where this is essentially all I talk about. It's called Don't Cut Your Own Banks. So you can hop on over there too.
We will link it all in show notes. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to The Life of And. This is your weekly reminder to keep making bold choices, saying clear yeses, and holding space for what matters most. As always, if you like this episode, I'd love for you to drop a review and share it with your friend. It's the fastest way that we can grow the show. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time.